Hello, everybody. Danielle here, founder of thesedge.org. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching live with me, that's awesome. Please say hi. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what kind of impact that you are interested in creating in the world and what you're working on, and we can work that into the conversation. And if you're watching this later, still say hi. It would be great to know what you think about what I'm sharing, and if you have any further questions that we can talk about. So if you don't know, this is the third day in my 4-week challenge to myself, and the challenge came about as a bit of a celebration and a reflection point because this week marks the 4th year anniversary of the Sedge, which is crazy. I cannot believe it's been 4 years. And it's just flown by for a lot of reasons. A lot has happened in my life in those 4 years, and I've been working on other things besides the Sedge. But this has always been kind of my home base for all of the change-making work that I do. And I love doing this work, and I can't see myself stopping anytime soon because it's so much fun to connect with everybody and to think about these topics every day. And so to celebrate these 4 years over the next 4 weeks, and I started on Monday, so I'm in day 3, is to talk about 4 years in 4 weeks. So in this first week, I'll be bringing up lessons learned and topics that really were key for my journey in the first year of business. And then next week, I will talk about lessons learned in year 2, and the third week, ideas and lessons learned in year 3, and so on. So I'm looking forward to it because it's kind of forcing me to look back and remember where was I at each stage along the way and what was I thinking about and working on. And I want to share that because maybe it's valuable for you guys, depending where you're at, what you're working on. And so my goal with this is to not only take that time to reflect back on the milestones over the last 4 years, but to provide you with some insights and tools that might help you cut the learning curve or get some extra inspiration as you go along the way. Because I know it can be a tough journey and a long one, and it's sometimes tempting to give up altogether if things aren't going the way you want them to, or things are unfolding in unexpected ways. It can be a little bit discouraging. And so I just want to share these pieces of my story so that you know you're not alone, and it's part of the journey, it's part of the fun, and it's part of the learning. So with that intro out of the way, today the topic that I want to talk about, which is a huge, huge one, it's kind of the lifeblood of your business, is creating your first offering. And so of course, in the first year of business with the Sedge, that was a big that was the biggest question, you know, what are we offering? How does it connect and serve with the people that we want to work with? And how is it valuable to them? And what is, you know, figuring out this whole business model? What the heck is going on, right? That's what most people are trying to figure out in their first year of business. And it's one of those things that often your plan will shift. It will need to shift as you start taking action because you just cannot predict how things are going to go. So that's one of my favorite quotes from Steve Blank. No business plan survives first contact with the customer. And it's so true, and you learn this in your first year. For example, with the Sedge, before starting it 4 years ago, I had worked on a business plan as part of a course. I was taking a certificate in social entrepreneurship while I was working still in banking because I knew that I wanted to go this direction and work with social entrepreneurs to some extent. So the business plan is all well and good, but once you hit the ground and you have a timeline, like in my case, we had 6 months in the Startup Chile program to really see what we could make, see how we could deliver value, and really make, I guess, set the path for the Sedge. So even though the business plan was done, looking back, it wasn't that good. I mean, it was fine in theory and everything, but in reality, in practicality, it just didn't work. So one of the first iteration of what the Sedge was going to be was a platform to connect impact entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, change makers, and nonprofit leaders to each other so that they could learn from each other, replicate business models in different areas where they were working, and really just spread that innovation. And now there have been some platforms that have done this job, and they've done it well, but we weren't really set up. It obviously wasn't in the cards for the Sedge, but we did try to for a while. So that's why I want to talk about creating your first offer and what I learned along the way in terms of approaching your first offer and your minimum viable product. So if you guys haven't heard of that concept before, it comes from lean methodology, which, is this practice of building, measuring, and learning as you go. So instead of, innovating in a bubble and then releasing your widget into the world, the idea is that you release, a quick version of your widget, you get customer feedback, you learn what they like, what doesn't work, and learn how you need to adapt, and you adapt on the fly, and you're iterating and innovating as you go. And so part of that mentality or that methodology, that approach to running your business is that when you're creating an offer, you want to not wait until your car is fully built, so to speak, before showing it to your customers and asking them what they think of it, but to instead create a minimum viable product or a first version of your offering and present that instead, so that you're saving time and money and resources that might otherwise be wasted if you spend all of this time focused on creating something, and then you release it into the world and your audience, your beneficiaries, your clients go, no, we don't need that. We don't want that. It's not useful. Thanks, but no thanks. That's, the worst case scenario. So I think this lean methodology approach has given so much value to entrepreneurs in terms of thinking, instead of doing it that way, how can we co-create with our audience and really design something that truly delivers value to them. And so in that way, I think it's a great fit with social entrepreneurship and the values that we have in terms of serving populations that might not otherwise be served very well, with that impact piece, alongside revenue or even above revenue, or working together at least, right, in harmony. So this is an idea that I talk about a lot in the Map Your Mission in 5 Days email course. So if you haven't checked that out yet or gone through it yet, you can sign up on my website, and there's a tab there for a free email course, and you can check it out. And the second day is all about getting to know your audience really, really well. And that's the secret to creating a good minimum viable product, a good first offer, is to let your audience lead you first. So in order to do that, you do need to get to know them and really understand them before you even create anything, because your solution that you've dreamed up in your head might not be a very good solution for where they're at and what they need. And so that was one of the biggest learnings I had with the Sedge early on in that first year, and with my team who I was working with, is, the people that we wanted to serve weren't really ready for a platform to connect with each other. There was no motivation for them to do that. It wasn't top of mind. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't really solving a tangible need that they had. So, we created this platform, and it was okay, but people weren't raving about it. They weren't, it wasn't serving an urgent and pressing problem for them. And one of the reasons we didn't necessarily realize that until after is because we didn't spend enough time engaging with our audience from the very first day, from day one, before we had, anything planned out to build or built. So that's one of the challenges that entrepreneurs make all the time. And I'm sure I'm still, repeating that mistake in different ways in my own business as I go forward, because it's one that I think it's a constant learning curve for no matter how long you've been in business. This reminder to always go back to your customer, your beneficiary, and really make sure you're on the same page as them and you understand what they need from you and how you can serve them. Because maybe you're not always the best person to serve them and someone else is doing a great job already. But you really need to understand that and not just expect, that Field of Dreams quote, build it and they shall come. If only it was that easy, but it doesn't work like that. So yeah, for minimum viable product, this is another thing I wanted to touch on because it can get confusing when you're in the weeds, right? When you're in the middle of planning your initiative and how you're going to create something to show to your audience and what is that going to look like. So this idea of minimum viable product is to take the very essence of the value you are going to provide and distill it down into one, feature or one offering, one element that is actually going to create that transformation for your customer or the person that you're working with. And yes, you could have an idea of how there's multiple bells and whistles on that offer later to make it better, to have it stand out from everybody else in a different way. And that's great. But every offer has that one essence, that one core thing to it, the one piece of whatever, whether it's a service or a product, that has to be delivered in order to create that transformation. And without that one thing, your customer will go, well, this, it's not working. It's not doing what I need it to do. But here's the challenge. It can be hard to see what that one thing could be for your minimum viable product when you're first starting out and when you're creating your first offer. So for example, the Sedge was down in Startup Chile Accelerator, which was an amazing experience. And we were surrounded by young and old entrepreneurs that had been living and breathing lean methodology and MVP and, agile development and this whole philosophy of test quickly, learn quickly, and improve quickly. And so that was kind of a playground for us to learn about this philosophy. But ironically, it didn't quite sink in the way it needed to. And so that's what I want to pass along to you guys is, for example, we created a website along this idea of having a platform to connect people. And instead of choosing the one core essence of it and focusing everything around that and testing that idea, we actually chose to add a bunch of bells and whistles, multiple channels to deliver value. And we thought, well, we'll know what people gravitate towards. By giving all these options, we'll know if they like this side of the platform or this side of the platform. We'll learn if they like to communicate with us that way or this way. And it was totally backwards. Instead of offering one thing, we actually gave way too many options and it diluted the whole point of the thing. I'm sure when people came to the website, they just didn't really know what is the point of this? It was too vague. And it was too intangible. So I think the secret to creating a really awesome first offering and not the fully fledged offering, but the minimum viable product, the essence of what you want to create and deliver is it needs to be one thing, one piece of value, the most important piece that you want to connect with your audience for. And it needs to be so tangible and so clear to them. And now if you're not sure if it's clear enough, this is where you definitely need to go talk to your audience and to other peers, other stakeholders working in your space and get their feedback on it. And it's sometimes hard to absorb that advice or decide which advice to listen to. So actually tomorrow, in day 4, I will be talking about that topic on how to take advice from other people and decide what you want to take to heart and what you're going to let go, and how to determine what advice to pay attention to. So that's going to be another topic. But really, for your first offering, you want to keep it so simple, so clear, so focused, and then have tons of conversations about that thing with your audience, your potential customers, and other stakeholders, and get their feedback. And that way you're only testing one assumption. So you're approaching this task of creating your offering with an assumption like, I think that in order to create change for this person, they need this service. So that's a terrible example, obviously. I didn't actually give you an example in that. But let's go to the Sedge. So our assumption wasn't clear. It wasn't a yes or no answer, because we were presenting so many options to people, and they wouldn't be able to give us a clear response about, yes, I like to connect with you guys on a webinar versus, a chat system with other change makers around the world, or something like that. So in that year was a lot of learning, and ended up kind of arriving at a better MVP option later in the year, which came about from having these conversations with people after we'd created this huge website, which, we could have skipped that step and saved a lot of time and effort. But it's okay. It's a windy path sometimes. Anyways, we kind of came to the realization that people weren't necessarily too worried about connecting with each other yet, because they didn't even know, how they could integrate social enterprise into their work, or what it would mean to them, or what that would look like, or even the kind of basic elements of what social entrepreneurship is and how it could serve them. So what I really started to notice was there was a gap there that needed to be filled before we could move on to more of the connecting peer-to-peer network type of thing. And so I started by creating a program outline to work with nonprofit leaders at the time, and start to kind of go down that education learning pathway with the Sedge, which is more what it is now. Although in other projects and initiatives, there's a lot of community, like through Changemakers Association, the membership learning community that I co-founded with Solène, and our Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab on Facebook. Some of these things, now they make more sense, and they were a lot more organic. That was really responding to the needs of the people that we were working with and what they were asking for. So that's the way that it can go a lot smoother, and you can have a lot more flow with it. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, so with your first offering, your minimum viable product idea, it's totally 100% okay, and I think it's a lot better if you think in phases. So for example, in my case, that connection and community was always really important to me. I knew it would be valuable for people, and I tried to do that first. But by choosing to go the other route and go more focused on learning and training and education, that was great. That was serving the need that people had in the here and now. It was more urgent, right? But it doesn't mean that I had to give up on the bigger picture goal or the less tangible idea of connecting peers to learn from each other. So I would encourage you, when you're thinking of your MVP and your first offer, if it's not feeling quite right because you have bigger goals and a bigger vision, that's okay. You got to start small and start with something simple, right? But you can always know in your head, as the leader of this organization, this project, that it will turn into something more, it will grow, it will be more complex as you go, and you can add in those layers that are important in the big picture. But it does not have to start that way. And in fact, it's going to be really hard if you try and start that way. So that's the idea of the MVP, is to really strip it down to the essence of the value that you want to offer and start there. Then you will learn so much, and you can start to reintegrate some of your other ideas and add them on as you go, as you are co-creating that offer and that solution with your audience, and really responding to what they need instead of throwing things at them. You can literally react to their needs and their questions, and that will take you so much further in the early stages of your business, and you can save a lot of time in between, a lot of headaches going down a path that's too complicated and not even going to get you the responses and the feedback that you're looking for, that you need to have from your audience in order to really serve them well. So that was one thing I wanted to mention. And the other thing that's a little bit tricky when you're creating your first offer is to try and stay focused. And I hesitate there because it's a balance, right? You want to stay focused on your the core value, that MVP that you are wanting to test and deliver with your audience. And I guess the balance comes in where you do need to be open to changing, right? You need to be open to the feedback and to adjusting your course as you go and as you learn more. So by being focused on the goal but open to new opportunities, that doesn't mean you let yourself get distracted with every new shiny object or every person who comes to you and says, oh, this is a really cool idea. Why don't you do it this way? That's not going to serve you, because if you get distracted every 2 months or every week and change course too quickly based on kind of one-off advice or feedback, then you don't actually give your idea a chance to survive either. So I think it's a bit of a balance game between being responsive to the needs and the community, but also staying focused on your objective in terms of the impact you want to create, and really give each approach, each idea, enough time to let it, decide if it's going to live or die or change. So I don't really have any good advice on how to make that decision. I think that would be a whole nother post, so maybe I can talk about it later in the series. But yeah, for now, just try and stay focused on that core essence of the value that you want to deliver. Be open to listening to that feedback from your audience and your beneficiaries, and do that before you even present anything to them, not just after the first MVP, but before that, way before that. So for example, with the Sedge in the first year, if I were to do it again, I wouldn't have created the website we created. I would have kept it just as a blog and done a lot of one-on-one work with people, and let it be really organic in terms of uncovering the layers of where they were at, what type of support they were looking for, and how they wanted to work together. And in order to do that type of discovery, you don't need a big, crazy website. You don't need any website. You could just do it with a Facebook page and reach out to people personally on LinkedIn or Facebook, or by phone and email, or in person at networking events. So I really challenge you to take whatever you think you need to do for your first offer and slash it into the core essence and start there. And then see how you can grow it and improve it and keep going with the development. So that's my advice from year one, all about creating your first offer and your minimum viable product. I hope it was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat. I would love to answer them and keep the conversation going. And also, like I mentioned, a lot of the concepts that I talked about in today's video correspond with the Map Your Mission in 5 Days email course, which you can sign up for on my website. And it's Map Your Mission in 5 Days is especially good for people just starting out exploring and discovering the potential for social entrepreneurship and how they want to create an impact in their own unique way onto and in whatever cause or group of people that you want to serve that's important to you, or that you are a part of yourself. Some of the best solutions come from that place as well. So I hope you check it out and enjoy the tips in there. It's a lot of what I talked about today is covered in there, but it's a lot better organized. So take a look, and I'll be back on this page for Facebook Lives tomorrow and Friday and the following 3 weeks, because I'm doing 4 years in 4 weeks, lessons learned over the past 4 years of running this business, and want to pass that on to you guys as well. So I wish you all the best, and I will talk to you again soon.